We are human beings who are very confused. A lot of the times we don't even know what we want and we are kind of groping in the dark.
We have noticed that a lot of parents find it difficult to accept that their children are homosexual.
If my child is not following the heteronormative pattern, the perception is that something which is a disease. It's absolutely ridiculous to have that kind of a mindset.
I see people doing Bumble, just swiping right, swiping left. So is the entire vision for love changing?
Love is in a bit of labor, and labor does not necessarily imply negativity. Struggles give you a sense of achievement, a sense of purpose. If I'm looking for a stable relationship, then I also have to provide a lot of emotional, physical stability myself. And that's not easy, given the fact that I have so much of glitter all around me. We begin to think romantic relationships are far more important than friendship. Friendships are as important as maybe how we felt when we were growing up in our childhood.
Ma'am, how do we deal with narcissistic partners?
The way we bring up men is very, very boosting narcissism, like they are invaluable, they are the epitome of God.
Does a message of misogyny come from this?
We'll end up being competitive even with our lovers. As a counter reaction to protect that vulnerable self in me, I project my misogynistic self on the woman, look down and denigrate the woman and consider the woman of no value whatsoever. How to change that thought? It's not easy.
Today I'm excited to welcome Dr.Jhuma Basak, who is a leading psychoanalyst with over 20 years of experience. She is deeply involved in understanding how culture and gender affects our mental health and has presented her work worldwide. From Japan to US, Dr. Basak has worked with top hospitals and teaches at several universities across India. She is also a published author with her books exploring the complex world of relationships and mental health. Above all, she is dedicated to make a difference in mental health and education sector in our community. Hello ma'am, it's wonderful to have you here. And I still remember the days when you were our teacher in college, and it was a privilege to be in your class, and to have you in my show, it's a very, very special moment for me.
It is my honor to be able to work together with once upon a time students. And I am so grateful that you remembered me and you invited me to your show. It's a little like how parents feel about their children, when they grow up and they lead us, they show us the path, then parents are reassured that not everything went wrong. So I feel the same. Not everything went wrong. I remember I must have lost my mind n number of times in the class, but it's brilliant to be here with you.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming. Ma'am, my first question would be, it's a very personal question. So now I'm 31 and in my family, everybody's like, when are you getting married? Like, why aren't you getting married? Like, there's a constant pressure, but then the mindset is not there at all to get married. So what is the correct age to get married? Like, is there a particular age?
I guess socially, culturally, they would think this is a good age for a young man to get married, as it has been in the previous years, previous decades, generations. So it's a midlife. Just before you start with the midlife, you get married, you settle down, because you finish college, you start your work life, and then when you have settled a little bit in your work life, expected that you would settle down with your family life, or at least initiate the family life, and then give time for children to grow. So that's the mindset behind this. But if you ask me in today's context, I see all of you, and I think it's not fair to pressurize by family, by parents, because the context has changed immensely. I don't blame parents that they are saying it because they are concerned, they are worried. They are worried because they don't know the context that you are living in and what it holds. There is no certainty, and they are scared of uncertainty. Like all human beings, all of us are scared of uncertainties of life. So I think it comes from there that they want you to get married and settle down. And I think it's also is linked to perhaps at an unconscious level to their dream of being successful parents, where they've brought up their son. The son is established professionally and now would be settling down, forming a family. So that gives them a sense of holistic achievement, that I have attained my dream as a successful parent.
So, ma'am, my next question would be, how does one consider it's a healthy relationship? Like, how does one maintain a healthy relationship?
Oh, dear
whether
me.
it be, whether you're married or not.
Yeah.
Like, are there certain characteristics or certain things that one should do to keep a healthy and maintain a healthy relationship?
It's not right on my part, to just give certain mandates of how we can have healthy relationships. I think it starts when we talk about relationships, we presume it's a romantic relationship, sexual relationship. But human relationships start from home and with friends, with neighbors. And I think it takes a lot of effort, a conscious effort also, because the cultural context that we live in, when we are talking about neighbors, it's a whole lot of, let's say, socio-cultural, socio-economic conflicts that one has to work with and create, let's say, healthy relationships, conducive relationships with neighbors, even with friends, where it gets very competitive in today's time. You know it actually better than me, that unless you are competitive, you're apparently not successful. I may not quite agree with all of this, but this is what today's time, in a way, projects. So when we are talking about healthy relationship, let's say to begin with mutual respect of differences.
Okay.
I think to be able to accommodate, to be able to respect each other's differences, whether it's in skill, whether it's in economic status, whether it's in religious differences, caste differences. In our country, unfortunately, in today's time also, it runs very deep within us. We would love to think and imagine that it doesn't work with us, but something so deep cannot just vanish unless we consciously work towards not being influenced by it. So if we can hold these differences, sexual preferences, differences in sexual preferences, I think that's the first step to begin with, that a mutual respect for each other. And that is something that stays even if one has to part in a relationship. How do I maintain that individual mutual respect and that, let's say, respect towards the relationship which was shared at one time? It can be between friends also. We think friendships are not important. And let's say when we are in our mid-20s, we begin to think romantic relationships are far more important than friendships. And then there comes a time when we realize, maybe in a later part of our phase, that friendships are as important as maybe how we felt when we were growing up in our childhood and we wanted to go beyond the family boundaries. So that's when friends kind of held out their hands towards us. So I would say that's the very, very core foundation of it. And certain human ethical commitments towards myself and the relationship. Honesty. Honesty is extremely important. Empathy. We'll end up being competitive even with our lovers. I think a beautiful relationship which churns each other, nurtures each other to bloom in every capacity. It can be professionally, it can be, it should be and must be emotionally, definitely enriching. I used to say in my classes earlier something that Freud had said, the capacity to love and the capacity to work, that increases. And when we say the capacity to work, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm talking about earning money per se. It can be inclusive of that. But the capacity to work involves the enjoyment of working, creating. And the capacity to love does not necessarily imply that I'm talking about having a number of relationships, but a human generosity. So you become vast internally. So that's what it is. Any kind of relationship which helps one to bloom.
So, ma'am, how does one understand that, if we have entered a zone where the relationship has become very toxic and it's time to end the relationship? Are there any red flags, or are there any particular things that one should be aware of, that this is it, like we should just quit this relationship?
Once again, as I started this conversation a while back, is that you can't give mandates for any of this. Relationships are very unique, and we must understand, even when it breaks and whenever it breaks, two people had put in their utmost selves to create that. And at least we must have that understanding within ourselves, that they had given their genuine, authentic selves to create something jointly. And unfortunately, it hasn't gone a long way, or it has kind of disrupted midway. Aspects, as I said, if respect is something which is being shaken, a mutual respect, a mutual trust in each other, then we need to reflect. Of course, we need to talk. These things cannot be done overnight. I think I can't trust you, and thus I call it off. It can be difficulties that I have within myself. And I might be presumptive. So definitely to be able to talk, to address lapses of myself and my partner with each other. These are very, I would say, idealistic situations, but I always believe the ideal is there to guide us. If there is no ideal, then we'll be further lost. So in that sense, I would say that, initiate a discussion, be open. Open doesn't mean that I would, hail abuses and insults on the other person, but to be able to say, to assess both people, both the companions, partners, assessing the situation, where one can empower it, where one can better it, nurture it. It needs guidance from each other. Intimate relationships, we especially, I'm talking about intimate romantic relationships, intimate erotic romantic relationships. This is something that you learn over age with time, and the quality of it changes. Like something, I'm sure, which I would find very attractive when I was 19 and 20 cannot be the same when I'm 40. So we change. Needs of relationships changes. What I want from a relationship, it changes. And whether the other person can reciprocate to that. So it needs a lot of working on it. And in today's time, it is important to emphasize on a conscious working on it, because we don't have time for it. We take it for granted that once we agree that, yes, we are holding hands and walking ahead, then it's done. One final statement. No, it's not done. Once again, something which I've always said in my classes, I don't know if I told you guys in my class with all of you, is that love is a constant, in a bit of labor, a very conscious bit of labor. And labor does not necessarily imply negativity. It's like if you are looking at life in a larger scale, life without struggle may be flat. Struggles give you a sense of achievement, a sense of purpose. So I would say it's the same thing with, labor. It gives you a sense of effort and purpose and consciousness. So that's how we build a consciousness in the mind, how I can bring in the best possible into the relationship, the joint space, the joint diet, and how the other person can complement in the same way. So both people have to be engaged with it. It cannot be done one way. And as I said, these are all very idealistic parameters, but once again, that at least gives us a guideline.
Ma'am, how do we deal with narcissistic partners?
I don't know. Okay. Just a while back, I was talking about how the first aspect, the first step perhaps that we have to look into when we are talking about relationships is that we work on ourselves. So in terms of narcissistic persons, it is, I won't say it is very difficult to deal with them. We don't have to deal with them. They are human beings. They are just like any other different people, but they seem to be having no need of other people. So they are quite content with their own selves. Now, if you see in today's time, why do we have such an, let's say, outburst of narcissism in human beings? One of the reasons I would say is that we are in a time where we are working, we are kind of projecting a very narcissistic culture. It's all about the self, but the self which is projected, which is externalized. The self not about what is the content in me, but how I am perceived. What is the image of myself?
True.
So it is a culture of narcissism. Now, growing up in such a culture, at such a time, it is very difficult for most of us to look for what inner content, what kind of a human being, human values do I have to be, let's say, before anything else, a good enough human being. So it is difficult. The narcissistic, let's say, individual equally suffers because for some reason, it may be momentary, but there is a certain, complete emptiness in confidence, which one is trying to kind of cover up with so much of decorative projections of the self. So it is difficult to be the person having narcissism. One would say is that, if you're suffering, work on yourself and maybe reach out to professionals, because all of us know that this does not sustain us. This image of the self cannot sustain us. We get tired, we get exhausted of working constantly on the projected self. And we also tend to believe that, the more I kind of project that I am all fulfilling, I have it all, I don't need anything, the more maybe I'm invulnerable. So we are scared to come out as vulnerable human beings. But that's reality. That's the quality of human beings. Otherwise, why are we human beings if we don't have, I would say, the delicate a sense of fragility, to be able to have that compassion to understand each other's fragilities and help each other. So I would say let's not put them in a category, but definitely we are at a time in a culture where we are unknowingly breeding that kind of feeling within us, most of us. So we have to work with that. It's in you, it's in me. It's just degrees differ.
Does a message of misogyny come from this?
Now, that's an interesting question because especially in our kind of sociocultural background, the way we bring up men, boys, is very, very boosting narcissism and, like they are invaluable and they are the epitome of God. That's also patriarchy showering on us. And in that sense, I would say, yes, the the message of misogyny unknowingly starts breeding within myself, within this kind of mindset, especially seen in men. But that is the saddest part. I think that's all the more reason why we need to work so strongly on narcissism from a very early stage in the family structures and also in our social milieu, where we are bringing up our sons, our would-be lovers, male lovers, husbands, brothers, the men of society in such a way that they are trapped within this, very, I would say, very fake structure of I-ness, which creates a sense of looking as a counter, let's say, reaction to protect that vulnerable self in me. I project my misogynistic self on the woman and look down and denigrate the woman and consider the woman of no value whatsoever.
How does one come out from this if one has realized that, I am this and I want to come out of this? Is there a few things that they can start doing?
First thing, of course, is to become aware, the consciousness that do I have it in me, to accept that I have it in me. And then every time I understand something that I have in me, and then to go beyond that, my regular pattern of behavior. So I've always thought, if, let's say, women, if they excel, if they get a job, which both of us are competing in, and they get a job, we take it for granted. Oh, you got it because of your looks and all your charm and your sexual charm. I've always thought that, and I believe that. So I never take it for. How to change that thought? It's not easy. I may say it, but what is happening inside? Saying is not enough. That I really have to work on, and not think that women actually work on it. They work on it as much as men work on it. And this is not why, they got it. They got it because of skills, which I don't want to accept that women have, because of my own vulnerabilities. I don't want to give them that acknowledgement whatsoever.
Right.
So this is a very, I would say, generic, basic level step to initiate the process. Like a lot of, men have this idea, and they work on it, that as a man, they travel, they work, so they have a right to travel, they have a right to work. Women don't, because you're a woman. In marriages, it's like that. I have a right because I travel, I work, I earn money, so I have a right to have extramarital affairs, but not necessarily the woman has a right to have extramarital affairs. Not that any one of it makes it easy for the marriage or the relationship, but if we are talking about individual rights and ways of thinking, as an independent way of thinking, so the woman has as much right as the man. So this is very difficult to actually believe that, and not to be prejudiced with what I've grown up with.
So a couple of friends are going through a heartbreak, and they're having a very tough time. Even when I had a heartbreak, and it took a lot of years to actually overcome the pain and just the understanding that, that person is no more there in my life. How does one overcome that pain and that suffering quickly? Is there an antidote, or is there any other thing that one can do to, just get over it quickly and move on?
Well, the last bit that you said is most important. None of us want to live in pain, right? So we want to get over it and carry on with life, move on with life. And since time is a very, very pressing factor in today's life, that's all the more that we want to, it's done, get away, snap it up, and just carry on with life. I guess some people can manage, but if you ask me, I don't quite go by that. I think each one of us needs our own time for it, depending on the kind of investment we made, the kind of persons that we are. There is, once again, no antidote or mandate or anything that you can say. It helps definitely to be able to stay in connection with people who understand you, not at random. Well, at certain age, certain, I would say, distractions work. So a heartbreak at age 16 may often find a whole lot of us landing up drinking nights after nights and chatting with our friends and saying, what a disaster it was and things like that. But when it's happening at the age of 50, heartbreaks also happen at the age of 50. It takes a much, much longer time. And I think my own trajectory also talks about the same thing at different phases of heartbreaks, where at a mature level, it takes a much longer time because you are much more built, in a much more complacent way by the time you're 50. And your expectations from life, from the individual, from society, from your own self are much more already built than when you're 16. So to have that kind of a disruption at a later age is, or maybe I would not say later, at a riper age, can be very, very deeply painful and often damaging. But even also in the early ages, even with the teens, depending on how the breakup happened, that is very important. I remember I think I taught in my classes where we talked about, training ourselves in various ways of being able to say no to corporate sectors or to friends, or to be able to say it in life. So that is very important, how we say no to a relationship or to a friend. And I think we need to be more compassionate about that. And usually that patience and compassion is not there if, let's say, between you and me, I decide to, for whatever reason, to not go with the relationship, then very often the patience and the sensitivity, the compassion may slip me regarding the other person. But one would say that can we try to keep that patience and that compassion for the other person and try to make it as amicable as possible so that the trauma doesn't haunt me, because life is an ongoing process. So hopefully some other day, some other time, this person will be in love with another person and not be damaged forever, or carrying, as we say, the baggages of the previous relationship and the previous injuries into the next relationship.
Ma'am, nowadays, do you think that the definition of love has changed? Because I see friends around who are only looking for sexual relationship. I see people, doing Bumble, just swiping right, swiping left, and they're just going on social media to just look for some casual relationships. So is the entire vision for love changing? Is relationships changing? Like, are people, getting away from this true love, or what we call, a very healthy relationship? Are people not looking at it that way?
Firstly, every time determines the changes in human relationships of every kind. Definitely, particularly, and most importantly, most emphatically perhaps, on romantic erotic relationships. I'm absolutely sure the way one engages with sexuality and sex in today's time was not how my generation has grown up with, or even my parents' generation. So every generation defines its own needs. So definitely needs are changing. I find a lot of young people in my clinical situation who are scared to go into long-term committed relationship. So a sexual relationship or an open relationship, they think is easy. To walk out anytime and not to be hurt. If you ask me, I'm a little old school, so I get a little upset with myself, but nothing is easy in life. So even if I think that, okay, a one-night stand or an open relationship or a non-committal relationship is going to be easy for me so that I'm not hurt, one needs to see, why am I in a relationship? What am I wanting from it? If I'm wanting, let's say, people go out in vacations together, right? So, and they come to a mutual understanding. So in this period, we will travel together and we'll be as partners, romantic, erotic partners. And after that, they go for their own life, their own work and own engagements, especially if one is traveling abroad or they are doing some studies or courses abroad. So all kinds of things happen, negotiations happen, which was not so definitely so much there or so openly there in previous decades and centuries. So there's a huge change which has come about. So I think what is most important is to see what am I wanting from this relationship, or what am I wanting from a relationship. If I'm looking for a stable relationship, then I also have to provide a lot of emotional, physical stability myself into the relationship. And that's not easy, given the fact that I have so much of glitter all around me. So there is a seduction of many relationships. There is seduction of sex. So am I ready to be able to give that kind? And then, of course, I have to look for somebody who's ready to be able to give that. I won't say that, everything about this is negative and everything about long-term committed relationship is positive. I think one very important aspect which I learned from your generation, the present generation, is that you have the capacity to talk and address, which we missed out. So I would say that whatever it is that you want at whichever phase in life, can we talk about it openly instead of, fearing that, okay, my partner wants me to be this way. If my partner knows that, no, I'm not in this way, it will not stay. Or I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm in a midway. I don't want to fully jump into it. I don't want to lose it. So I'm buying time. Talk openly so that there is an ethical commitment and there is no misleading of each other. Of course, the other aspect also stays, we are human beings who are very confused. All of us are confused. So a lot of the times we don't even know that, what we want so clearly, and we are kind of groping in the dark. But so we also have to give the benefit of doubt that not necessarily everybody is there to, take me for a ride. Maybe in the process, one just got lost. One just discovered many different aspects of oneself. I have seen in my work experience, professional clinical work experience, where a 20-year-old relationship, they got involved from the time they were in college, and then they did their PhD and all of that together, and higher studies. And then one of them was working in India, the other got an opportunity to go abroad, and then the lady got an opportunity to go abroad, and then she discovered her own sexuality over there, because in the Indian context, the female, I would say, assertion of sexuality, their sexual desire, their pleasure, their right to pleasure, is very, very oppressive and repressive. So it was very painful for the man, undoubtedly. And this was a journey that she discovered, and she didn't want to hurt him. It was very difficult to be able to talk about it, and definitely the man felt that, you got a better slice of life. You went abroad and now you discovered your sexuality, and now, but then she came and talked about it and wanted to still work on it. It's difficult because both have to grow in many ways together. And any long-term relationship, which I think you will find in our epic stories, in our joint family structures, you have to let go and forgive many things, even in friendship.
So, you were saying about open relationship. What is an open relationship? Just for my better understanding, if you could just describe it.
Both of them agree, as far as I understand, both of them agree that they are together, and they can be with other people, and they don't have to hide from each other that they are with A, B, and C, or whoever it is. And even socially other people know about it.
Okay. So these days we see a lot of young people don't want to get married, and the concept of marriage is also, not clear to them. Like, is it compulsory to get married or?
Not necessarily, absolutely not compulsory. Marriage is something that we want to lead to a relationship, into marriage, because we want social recognition of it. Especially in today's time, and especially in our context, actually, not today's time, in our context, and for the woman, a marriage helps into making it socially recognized and socially honorable, acceptable. Even for, I think, the same sex relationship, particularly when we're talking about two women, because women's position, as you know, in the Indian context is still something that we have to all work towards to uplift it. So for them to be respected by society and by friends and family, they need an institutional authorization. And even for homosexuality in general, I would say, even for both men, trans persons, to be able to take it to their marriage, to be able to live together. So there's a lot that needs to be done. But what is, I think, giving hope is that we've started talking about it, and the members of the LGBTQA communities, all of us have started voicing about it, queer members talking about it. So there's more space of at least listening. It takes a very long time. I mean, we are still fighting ostracization of women having, more than one marriage. So heteronormative marriage. So there's a long way to go. So definitely marriage is not something that we, compulsory, but it is related to also childbirth. So that becomes compulsory because childbirth needs to be legitimized. There are a lot of women who are single mothers through adoption, and now it has opened up for other ways. I think our country would soon be catching up to other ways of having children. So heteronormative marriage is not the only way. I think there's, as you said a while back, we talked about it. So there's a huge change coming. And when we are living in a, let's say, time of change, most of us don't understand much things with absolute certainty. They have to be evolved. They keep evolving.
So, ma'am, we have noticed that a lot of parents find it difficult to accept that, their children are homosexual. How does one start accepting that, okay, my children are this, and I should be, support them, help them, guide them with whatever they want?
Of course, a lot has changed from where we were, but still it is predominant in most parental mind that if my child is not following the heteronormative pattern, then there's something wrong with my child. And a lot of the time, still now, they bring the child, whether it's a boy, whether it's a girl, into the clinic saying that, please correct him or her. Ma'am, muke thik kore din. So there's something which is not right, which is, the perception is that there's something which is a disease. So, cure her, please, or cure him. Now, firstly, I think we have to talk out, reach out to families and, starting from schools, I would say, even teachers have that kind of notions that this is something that we are all individuals and we are different. We, for various reasons, we are different. Our choices are different. So to be able to integrate that within the family, within the social structure, we need to have more openness of, let's say social events, seeing them visibly in social corners, which is opening up a lot. We see that in Calcutta and across India it is happening. But still it works very strongly within parental mind. They come often with this idea that, even if I accept, what will society say? What will my relatives say? As parents, one has to stand next to our child against the world. So unless we do that, how is the next parent going to, come within this purview? And there's nothing disease about it. Whether it's a psychiatry, whether it's psychology, whether it's science, they've all talked about that we've crossed that time when we tended to see anybody not following the heteronormative pattern to be termed as something wrong with the person. There's a certain kind of illness in the person which needs to be rectified, corrected. None of that is applicable in today's time. And we need to have more of this kind of open discussion with parents, and also for them to be able to see that, n number of people who are living differently, different lifestyles, choosing different, let's say, same-sex partners or transsexual partners, they are very happy in their life and they are very successful professionally. It is our responsibility, a collective responsibility, that society changes its ancient ways of thinking. It's like something that we still want to hold on to about the caste system. It's absolutely ridiculous to have that kind of a mindset. So a dialogue is most important to be able to initiate this. A lot has happened, is happening, and I believe and I hope, that's the hope actually, that a lot will change in the next few decades.
So, ma'am, are there attachment patterns that can be broken down into?
Well, yes, we do follow certain attachment, not that we follow consciously, it happens unconsciously, attachment patterns, according to psychoanalytic understanding, reading. So it is said that our first attachment pattern comes from our, let's say, the caregivers, can be parents, can be others also, can be biological parents, non-biological parents, and so it comes from the immediate family situation. So it's not compulsory, I would say, that, because it comes from there, it has to be broken. Or at all, can we ever break our unconscious relationship patterns? What we definitely can do, is to become aware. If I'm repeatedly getting, let's say, into friendships and relationships where I am, let's say, getting abused in different ways. Subtle abuse is far more difficult to identify. Emotional abuse is very difficult to identify than physical abuse. Then I'll have to see what is it that is getting me to it, because at the end of it, it can't be beneficial, it can't be nurturing for anyone to be abused in any capacity. So that's when the reflection is necessary, perhaps. Where is it coming from? And to become aware of it so that I do not unknowingly hurt myself any further. And that takes time, because when we are young, even if we understand certain things or have a certain, let's say, insight or reflection, we have the energy and the power of the youth when we feel we can change the whole world. That's the kind of, belief and power we imagine to have. But over time, one, with age and with maturity, with experiences, one, I guess, would come to a point when one needs to perhaps undo certain ways of operating, change certain ways, develop certain ways, even within one's own self in terms of giving. For example, let's say with women in our kind of cultural context. We are taught from birth itself that you have to keep giving for, no matter who it is, in the relationship, starting with the family, to the context of where, you're kind of negated completely. Yourself, your subjectivity is completely negated. I think I wrote quite some time back about the famous film of a long time back, Mother India, where it is like an individualization of a sacrificial Mother India in every woman. So in this kind of a context, it's very important for women to be able to reflect and see that all giving is not so conducive and not so beautiful. They also need to reflect that what am I also getting? Who the other person, what is the other person giving me? Otherwise, if I keep giving, it's very understandable. The mechanism is going to drain me. So one of the reasons one would find women to be, in a way, become so vulnerable, because there's a limit to this mechanism where there is no counterfeeding of that mechanism. So this is just giving one example in a general manner. But of course, it depends from person to person. Individuals, even men, can be like that. Others can be like that. It depends how I have grown up. So this is something that I think we need to really look into when I talk about how certain cultural conditioning makes us a certain kind of human beings in relationships. Like we understand in our context, once again, the elderly always has to be giving. So if you are older in a friendship or in a relationship, you have to be giving. Of course, it varies between brothers and sisters. Of course, even if the sister is younger, then the family says that, you must learn to give your elder brother. So it has a lot to do with cultural conditioning, which we need to reflect upon.
What do you think about the influence of social media and the new technology that has emerged in our relationships, in our day-to-day relationships? Have you particularly noticed few things that has changed because of the overusage of social media?
In a way, I feel it has made communication multi-layered, and anything which is multi-layered demands a whole lot of understanding, time investment to be able to comprehend it. When we speak directly, it's very different from when we write messages or when we put up a picture in our social media and somebody comments and the whole world is open to see. So it is a new vista which has opened up, right? Which we cannot do away with. This is something we have to learn to live with. But what is important is to be able to talk about and equip ourselves further to be able to see how social media and this new technology, its communication mode, how it benefits me, how it has its strong points, and how it interferes in my relationship and in my let's say, a sense of unity, sense of peace. For example, let's say with the availability of video calls, it is so much easier when our elderly parents are here and you have their young children abroad or traveling within the country, and they're talking and they're seeing them. So it's much more, I would say, less disconnected than it has been before. But on the other hand, it also creates so much of undue complications between younger couples and in relationships because of so many other kinds of other people's communication getting into it, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram. Because let's say between you and me, you or I put up each other's picture, but then it's no longer between you and me, right? So the whole world is communicating, and then we are responding to that. And that is not something which is within anybody's control, how the world is going to communicate. And that has its impact between the immediate relationship from where I, let's say, put up the picture or you put up the picture. So this is a complex area that is, so one also needs to define, how I'm going to use my social media. What am I going to use in the social media? It calls for a lot of mutual agreement to what, how we are going to use social media in the relationship. And these things we usually never talk about, we never learn about, because we once again take it for granted. And there's no time for finer, let's say, nuances. We only talk about it when, let's say, the disaster has happened. So I think even when at the younger stage, maybe in the education system, we need to talk about and train them how to use social media, how to be mutually respectful in social media.
Do you think this is one of the reasons that nowadays relationships are way more fragile, or are there other aspects into it that, people are way more fragile in relationships nowadays compared to what it was before?
It's difficult to straight away say something like that, Sukrit, because today's generation has also moved away a lot from their families, right? Their immediate biological families or families that they've grown up with. And their own community consists of friends, colleagues, and the whole world. A lot of the times they become the savior, and the family that they've grown up with have nothing to do with what is happening in their life. So you can't really say that this is as per se negative. Yes, as I said a while back, it is very important to have that awareness as to how I use this let's say this app. It is meant for me to use. It cannot start using me. And that's something that we have to consciously do. As I said just a while back also, is that because it has opened up to n number of people for communication, for connecting, so it is very difficult to hold on to one connection with my loved one, my lover, my partner, whatever it may be. So much is happening. It's like anything, like when you study for your exams, you cannot answer messages, look at the TV, listen to music, cook, and at the same time study. Look at what we do. When we are committed in a relationship, we are, even when we are talking with each other or on the phone, we have 5 other simultaneous, WhatsApp messages that we are attending. We are visually seeing something, or we are flipping something. And we have n number of connections, with the whole world, which has, on one hand, is very beautiful, as I said, that the world is on your fingertips and you have the right to be connected, and that works so favorably in many occasions. I have seen my students where they have been supported by their immediate friends when they have been at the point of breakdown, and their families have no idea about it. So this has been very, very constructive. But on the other hand, as you very rightly said, that so much of communication, so much of so many people in my life, it's very difficult to give due space to everybody equally and deservingly, and to even find that with someone. So you'll have to make certain, very strong choices.
So, ma'am, this would be my last question, is how do we move forward and make our relationships more mindful, have healthier relationships, and, and make our lives better? And the other half's lives better too.
Sure.
Not only our lives.
Sure. Yeah. As I started this conversation with, is that I don't have the answers, Sukrit, but I can share some of my thoughts, which is, I think it's important to reflect on what makes me happy and what makes the other happy. Sometimes to make the other happy, I may not be happy, but not always. It has to be reciprocated. It has to be balanced. I think, once again, it's not about being per se healthy, because that gives a very pathological sense to me. So I don't say healthy, but yes, definitely happy. It's like if I am not happy inside, I will not be able to complement your happiness or generate your happiness. So soon I will be envying your happiness. So for my own sake, I need to be happy. So that's the first thing that we need to work on. And with that, we bring our plate to for a relationship. So as you can see, the journey starts with the self. So we have to work on ourselves to be able to bring that ready self into a relationship. A relationship is not about getting a boyfriend, having a girlfriend, having a lover, having a partner, but it's also equally about giving. It's giving time, it's giving understanding, it's giving respect, it's giving love. So this mutual process of give and take, the mechanism, as I say, it's important to both partners be nurturing that. Of course, there are certain situations in life, when certain crises in life, when, if I lose someone very dear to me. So that's when my partner would offer me and provide me that support, that emotional strength, until I am being able to find my balance and myself back. And then again, we can have a reciprocity. So this reciprocity is very important in terms of emotional nurturing, mutual happiness, mutual respect, mutual growth, social growth. When I talk about, it's social, it's intellectual, it's professional. So complementing each other would be very nice if it's possible.
Thank you, ma'am. This was wonderful having you and, speaking to you. It's been so special, this entire episode. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so thrilled and I feel like saying I'm in queue for the next one. Please tell me.
Yes, ma'am. Of course, we would want to have multiple episodes with you.
Sure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.